Yeah. Right. Let's move on to something that is at least competent. So that's a nice change. And that's the film that was intended to be in the Universal Dark Universe thing nonsense that got immediately next after one film and is now on its own, and I think has worked well for it. But I'll let you tell the people about that, Scott.
Yes, so we're talking, of course, about The Invisible Man. Now, most people will know Elizabeth Moss from Mad Men or The Handmaid's Tale, but to me, of course, she'll always be the breakout star of Uwe Ball's 2002 classic Heart of America. I like to drop that in occasionally just to bring on the fact that I had to watch Uwe Ball films for this podcast, and it's scarred me for life. It really has.
I can take issue with the had to. Did it to yourself.
Did it to myself, I do, and that's what really hurts. In The Invisible Man, she plays Cecilia Cass on the run from her abusive, controlling, wealthy optics engineer boyfriend Adrian, not long after she's able to make her escape, and now living with her childhood friend, Aldous Hodges detective James Lanier, and his teenage daughter Stormbreed Sydney. Cecilia gets word that Adrian has committed suicide. Except, weird things keep happening to Cecilia. Things being moved, things going missing, in ways that leads her to believe that Adrian hasn't really departed this world after all. And, well, I'm not sure how much more of a plot synopsis you need. By the very nature of the film's title, you're already a step ahead of the characters in their understanding of the setup. Things escalate over time, of course, with her friends and family being turned against her, and her doubting her own sanity, and things getting much worse from there, before Cecilia desperately tries to find a way to turn the tables on her stalker. So, slightly unusual structure this, as it spends a lot less time than I've expected on the subtler paranoia-inducing stuff in the first hour, which is treated broadly as a ghost story, before somewhat abruptly transitioning into a thriller for the second hour. Now, to be fair, I enjoyed both halves, but it's still a little bit of a jarring transition. And it is to Elizabeth Moss's great credit that she carries the somewhat hokey premise to believability by dint of her very convincing performance, and writer-director Lee Whannell keeps things in motion ably enough to produce an enjoyable 2-hour slice of entertainment. It's another budget-smashing success for Blumhouse Productions, and this one at least is well-deserved. So endeth my notes. What puzzled me a little bit was I was expecting this to spend a lot more time doing small stuff for that first hour to kind of really build up the kind of gaslighting sort of aspect of it. And I think pretty much the 1 hour mark, you get a kind of this weird drag down ghost fight thing. As Adrian kind of makes his presence known and starts throwing Cassie around the house. And then from that point on, it becomes something more like a thriller, like the last half of Hollow Man or something like that, as opposed to being a bit more smaller scale, which surprised me a bit. I thought that would be kind of kept back to the last quarter of an hour. However, I can't say I didn't like it. I think it's mainly because of Elizabeth Moss's performance, who's really good in this, and that really carries an awful lot of it, and she can make you believe practically anything, which is useful when it's a fairly high concept thing like this. And I think overall, yeah, I liked it. I certainly would recommend it. It's of all the horror films I've seen in the past few years, this is the one that I can most easily recommend. There's perhaps films I've seen that are on a number of levels better, but somehow still fall apart for me on some level. Things like Get Out and Us. There's something about those films which I really like, a number of aspects in it, but there's always something that falls down. Basically, the believability of the text becomes an issue of it, particularly in Us, where the film is asking us to literally believe that there's like this underground facility full of clones of people, and that is somehow used to control people above ground. And it's that kind of, when you're presented with that in a plate, it kind of becomes harder to take the rest of it on face value, which is something you don't have with here. It doesn't push the bounds of believability too hard. You can almost believe anything that's happening in it, and that kind of gives it a veneer of respectability and believability that kind of carries it through. And yeah, overall, I think it works. Wasn't blown away by it, but I would certainly recommend it to anyone who's looking for a horror film. Yeah, give it a look.
Yeah, I never really considered this a horror film. I always considered it a thriller from the start. But with that minor point aside, I largely on board with you that I kind of thought the paranoid build-up, the gaslighting, it ought to have gone on a bit more.
Yeah.
Before ramping up. And that's the more interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And because parts of this film are like focusing on it quite cleverly, actually, I think, on the like abusive relationships and manipulation and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's already based on a relationship where this woman was made to feel that she was crazy.
Yeah.
And like didn't really have control of her life. That this is continuing afterwards. Like, while the film's called The Invisible Man, there's no surprise for the audience, but it would have been nice if they'd just kind of hammered a little bit more on, like, not her immediately jumping to thinking it was him.
Yeah, and I think they could have gotten away with that. I think the script was crying out for that, and it would have been cheaper to do. Not that it was particularly expensive to do anyway, as it turns out, but yeah.
There are lots of things that work about it. I quite like the visual style. And I know I didn't actually particularly like it, although you were very fond of it, but it's from the director of Upgrade. And he definitely has an eye for style.
Yeah.
And there's some nice compositions in here. And yeah, it's Elizabeth Moss is the best part. It's just, I mean, there are flaws. I do have issues with it, but it's just a really solid film, and I really enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
It's not the best by any means, and there were bits that were driving me crazy. There were two scenes in particular where, well, apart from the bit where she pours milk on the guy's head, which is meant to be paint, but it's clearly milk. What's going on there? I'm sure they've got milk in Australia where they shot it, or paint in Australia where they shot it. Yeah, there were two fairly critical parts of the film that bothered me, and it's like they didn't make much sense at the time, and they looked like it was they existed to get to the next bit. One is the scene in the restaurant, Scott, where a knife appears, but somehow she catches it. Well, why would it's like the actual act I got, but how that ended with her holding the knife, no, that didn't make sense. And then there's another bit later in a hospital where Elizabeth Moss is lying next to at least two guns for 5 minutes and doesn't think to pick one up until the character is running out. The Invisible Man's running out of the place. That doesn't make any sense, because she's clearly shown that she's in her right mind at that point and thinking and like planning and scheming, because she tricks him just before that.
Yeah.
So it's not like she's like distressed or anything. She's actually really sharp at that point. But no, it's clearly because the character had to get away for the next part to happen. Yeah. So there are a few like bad joins in there. And rather than those sort of things making me angry, when it's a film otherwise enjoying, those things frustrate me more than anything else. They disappoint me. And if there's anything else that I really disliked about the film, it's the fact that the Foley work seems to think that that the Invisible Man's a xenomorph, and the score, which is appalling, thinks that it's the Terminator. So the sound in this film bothered me. Actually, I had a third issue with the sound in that, like, when you make your character, the Invisible Man in this case, technologically based instead of supernatural, you hold yourself to different standards. And so for the entire film, it's bothered me how this camouflage suit was also making him silent. Again, I can't not think about these things. It's like, okay, you set up, right? You see that it's coming. That it's like this. Like, he's an optics expert and stuff. Like, well, all right then, camouflage suit, James Bond starting invisible cars and stuff. Get the basic idea of that. Why doesn't he make any sound? This makes no sense. And it can open doors with deadlocks entirely silently. No. Again, minor niggles actually, because the atmosphere of the film is really good. It moves along at a nice clip. Elizabeth Moss is great.
Yeah.
And I think this, if you're going to have a look at these properties again, like Universal's classic monsters and stuff, I think this is the way to do it. I mean, there's a interesting red letter media half in the bag from couple of weeks ago, I think, where they show you how not successful Blumhouse actually is with because they've actually got quite a scattergun approach. There's like throwing as much against the wall with low budget as they can see what sticks. But something like this, it's just strong concept, strong idea, low budget but quality director, quality actors, and then it's a hit because it's what $300 million they made in the end off a budget of $7 million or something like that.
$7 million budget's kind of hard to say, I guess. I think this is one of it's the most successful film this year, as far as I understand, and it's one that kind of got its run cut off by the whole shutdown, lockdown. So whatever it makes in home formats is probably going to be a bit more. So yeah, it could easily get up to 300 million, I would think.
Yeah, so but on a budget of $7 million.
Yeah, a hell of a return.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't need anything in the small amount of CGI, because most of them, of course, the cameras want to get nothing, right?
Yes, you just need to get rid of that string they used to shut the door, that kind of thing.
So the CGI that they need to end is fairly minor, so they don't need to spend a lot on that. And the rest, they're fairly standard locations, so you spend your money on like good actors.
Yeah,
and you have a strong concept, and it works. And so I'm actually quite excited to see what else Blumhouse, if they are going to run with it under Universal's auspices, what they're going to do with other like takes on the Universal classic monsters thing. And I'm actually really quite excited about that prospect.
Yeah, if they can give it a nice modern twist. I mean, I think The Invisible Man's probably the easiest one to do, because it always had something of a modern twist to it, because it was sort of science based even back when H.G. Wells wrote it. Obviously, it's not quite science then, but it had a more of a basis in reality than Wolf Boy or Dracula. But it seems to be the right production house. They've got a good track record of putting people who care about the properties with people who have some kind of idea about where to put it and letting them run with it. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about it. Yeah,
I'd quite like to see what they could do with Frankenstein, actually, because that's another one that yes, obviously out with the bounds of possibility, but is about science, and like the themes are really good in Frankenstein, but it's about science, and like actually with advances in recovery techniques and maybe like stem cells or something like that, I can see that a modern Frankenstein, without being supernatural at all, would actually be feasible. I think you'd be able to suspend your disbelief enough for that to work, so I'd quite like to see them tackle that one. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, as for the other stuff, I'm not so sure. But yeah, I'd like to see them give it a go. And I think they've taken something, trying to make it slightly more like science fiction rather than straight horror, actually works really well.
Yeah, and let's be honest, they couldn't screw it up any more than Universal have with the Mummy and such like.
You're not suggesting perhaps that Universal just desperately wanted their own universe too? They're very much on the me also train, and then messed up with doing it hurriedly, are you?
Oh no, never. I
mean, it's not like they maybe saw Warner Brothers making an absolutely terrible attempt at copying Marvel and then saying to Warner's, hold my pints.
That's what we need.
You think you can mess this up by rushing into it in the no thought through way? Well, hold my pint, Warner Brothers.
Yes.